Welcome to another episode of the Reboot Chronicles, a no-holds-barred forum with global leaders, authors, entrepreneurs, and CEOs about how organizations stay focused on growth and innovation in unprecedented times. I'm your host, Dean Tobias, coming to you live from Reviv's North American headquarters in Chicago, and we would like to thank you for joining us from around the globe today. I'd like to welcome Ivan Markman. He's the Chief Business Officer of Verizon Media, and he serves as either an advisor or a board member or an investor at many tech companies, including companies like CreatorIQ, Measured, Holly, Twine, PetInsurer, Wonder, QLess, and Local ID. So it's quite a list of stuff there, Ivan. Those of you that don't know, Verizon has all types of brands that they've accumulated over the years. It's not just your mother's old phone company anymore. So things like Yahoo, Huffington Post, TechCrunch, the whole media group kind of brings that together. So lots of different properties that help people stay informed, stay entertained, and communicate and transact like many of us do. And as you can imagine, during the pandemic 2020 lockdown, stuff that we've all been going through, their usage just probably skyrocketed, very similar to what we've seen on a lot of the partners with Reviv and usage of different types of things. Ivan, I want to welcome you. You're looking good out there.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, anytime. You haven't seen you in a long time, but I forgot to mention in my intro that you also own AOL. And full disclosure, a long time ago, I sold one of the first online games company to AOL. It became AOL Games, and I must say, I had the time of my life working at AOL during that transition period. It was good days. The maybe just to start out, now we know a little bit about the company, but maybe tell us about your role and what you're doing to kind of impact the company. Might be a great place to, we've talked about Verizon before and the massive investment in 5G, but we held the good stuff for you.
Yep, thank you. So when you think about Verizon Media, it's one of three business units within Verizon. You have the consumer business, which is, as you mentioned, your consumer phone and other connectivity solutions. Then there's the business unit that has enterprise and government communication solutions, and then there's Verizon Media. And when you think about Verizon Media, we serve three big customer groups. One is consumers, and you were talking about AOL and brands like Yahoo and TechCrunch and so on. And then there's advertisers. So we help advertisers engage with their target audiences, whether that's on our own properties or through our ad tech in other key partners, and publishers, which is that other side, who are either trying to deliver great content and video experiences through our Verizon Media platform, as well as trying to monetize their assets through our advertising technology. So my role within Verizon Media is to run the B2B business. So I'm responsible for the advertising and the media platform business. And to your point on what I've been focused on, the whole space is evolving very fast and has been transforming at great speed. So my role in there has been to really partner with all of our thousands of employees and build that future and continue to evolve our offerings and solutions to kind of lean into that future.
Yeah, that sounds good. Let's start with that, though. You mentioned people. So is Verizon Media a totally different culture than the mothership, back in New Jersey? So you guys are more left coast kind of a culture?
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I joined around the time when Hans was appointed as CEO of Verizon. So the whole company has seen a ton of evolution and transformation of its culture. And you've likely seen a lot of that in the public domain. We all have common elements, and I would say, some of the common elements are probably best defined by the mission of creating the networks that move the world forward. So really a lot of, how we connect people with their passions, how we connect businesses with growth and so on. But then we also have a lot of our own, subcultures, if you will. And you were talking about, our heritage. So we definitely have very unique traits that pertain to this business unit, which also have to do with the types of customers that we engage with, and so on. So it's a nice, a really nice thriving melting pot.
Yeah, I bet. So maybe let's start with the consumers. We've reported a lot on Reboot Chronicles, what's going on and how behavior is changing, but you've got a massive audience and very divergent ways to get to them, and advertisers that want to get to them. What are the big trends you've seen in 2020? And then maybe we can kind of unpack those about what's temporary versus long-term shifts.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we reach about 900 million users worldwide. We've seen significant changes when it comes to consumption patterns, as you would expect, as the pandemic hit, but also being in an election year in the US and so on. There's been significant increases in consumption of news, as well as life-oriented solutions and entertainment. And in our particular case, because we have quite a bit of activity on the finance front, lots of interest when it comes to following the market volatility and what's going on there. And then when you think about how consumers engage, we've continued to see both the scaling and growth of mobile, but importantly, really a step up on over-the-top type media consumption. Streaming adoption continues to grow, and we saw that connected TV viewership audience exceed 200 million for the first time last year, and just kind of skyrocketing from there. So those are some of the big changes that we've seen. And I would say, you'd say, well, some of those may have peaked at some point in time,
Right.
with the pandemic and so on. But we're seeing a bunch of those, quite frankly, making more of a step function and staying there. So, as I think about particularly some of the cord cutting and connected TV type consumption, what I would say is that it probably brought forward a new state of consumer behavior. And then
Right.
once again, when it comes to trusted news, trusted media consumption, similarly, seeing that behavior persist.
Yeah, the cord cutting topic is when I used to go to cocktail parties, that would be the first question people ask me. Now, I don't know. I'm dying to go to a cocktail party, by the way. Please have one. It's a big topic, and I get the questions all the time. What should I do? And it's not an easy answer. It's like, well, what do you like to watch? I'm a news junkie and movies, so I'm easy. I don't need a sports stuff. That's the hard part to bundle in there. And um, so I can hear the cable TV audience watching and cringing, the executives right now, because it used to be a very scary subject for them, but they've figured out a way around it. So maybe tell the viewers a little bit about OTT versus, CTV and what all that means, and maybe a little advice on what they should do.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, I'll probably start by saying the obvious, that it's an incredibly dynamic space that has seen massive change this year, and we participate in it from different perspectives. I shared with you that one of our B2B capabilities is around content delivery and video streaming, what we call the Verizon Media platform. So we have about 10,000 of the world's largest brands and publishers, companies like Disney and Fox and Discovery, and we're helping them prepare, deliver, and display and monetize their video content on any device. And what we've seen is just, tremendous evolution and dynamism there. So I think if there was one kind of generic advice, for what it's worth, is the importance of experimentation and testing and learning. And when you think about it, we're undergoing a massive real-time experiment for society, right? So I think that there's a lot of learnings, companies that are playing more with kind of straight subscriptions, companies that have kind of convergent models, if you will, that have ad-supported VOD and subscription VOD, and are playing with the content within that. And then, I think also interestingly, a lot of how these participants are leveraging data and forms of intelligence to continue to optimize that, while at the same time investing heavily in technology to continue to improve the experience. Because let's face it, the experience is going to be different depending on the technology that you're leveraging, the connectivity. I mean, for us, obviously, mobile edge compute and 5G are big components of how we support some of those experiences and whatnot. So just to recap it, I would say experiment, continue to innovate when it comes to technology, and leverage the power of data and the intelligence that comes with that to continue to optimize faster.
So a lot to unpack there, but for you consumers listening in, what that means is you probably already have a device in your home that can do this, whether it's a little Roku stick that you've lost in your drawer, or your Apple TV or something. I've found that devices I haven't used in a while actually work. I've been running a social experiment on myself. I just moved into a new house, and I decided, I don't know if I was just lazy or I really was doing an experiment, but I decided not to hook up cable. So I have tons of broadband, more than any human being should have. I've got that, but I didn't hook it up, and I was a little lost the first week, and then I just kind of found myself, and I have so much more time by not watching kind of linear clicking around television. It's interesting, but if you are a multi-using household that goes after all the genres, it's tough. If you're just one person that has a couple of things you want to do, so it's that's interesting. But the other thing to unpack that you just brought up is you're like an arms dealer, so you probably got almost 1 billion users on these networks. I think it's like 900 million or something like that. So that's good. You can monetize the heck out of that, but you also are saying, no, we're an exchange platform. We don't care where the stuff is placed. We will place. So we're basically we're in the middle of publishers and advertisers. So that's a big business for you. Obviously, you're not alone there as well, but also you've invested, back to the mothership, billions and billions in 5G. So are you an enabler there on the 5G side, or is it more proprietary that you want to launch some things? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So yes, and what you'll see, and you even see it with content, right? So there's a few spaces, as I highlighted, finance and sports, again, for certain sports categories, and news for sure.
And those were some of the gems inside Yahoo. So Yahoo Finance is big. Sports, HuffPost,
right,
political, TechCrunch,
and on many of those, as I said, we're primary, but we're also leveraging what we know as a publisher to help publisher partners be successful and drive their success. So we're playing and supporting in both spectrums. Now, back to your point on 5G, we've invested a lot in immersive technology. You may have heard of Riot. We have a lot of capabilities there. We launched Verizon Media Immersive, which is a series of capabilities and tools to enable publishing and monetization in AR and VR. And we have a lot of scale, not only in terms of powering this through our outlets like news and so on with immersive experiences, but also enabling monetization. So when you think about the connective tissue with 5G in that side, is you can enable much richer immersive experiences, and that will only grow and scale. When you think about it on the video side and helping publishers, we powered the Super Bowl earlier this year when we still had a chance of doing those things. The Dolphin Stadium was a 5G connected stadium. The cameras there enabled the users in the stadium to essentially be in the director's chair, right? So you can have your own Jumbotron, if you will, and there's all of these experiences that you can power, both, as a first-party content publisher, if you will, but also for publisher partners and then for advertisers in terms of delivering a lot more immersive experiences.
Yeah, and you did that with the NFL for many other stadiums that just haven't been turned down yet. So a lot of investment there. If I'm an AT&T user and I go into one of those stadiums, I can use all the Verizon tools, right?
So if you are an AT&T subscriber and you're accessing any of the apps, of course, you will have access to the capabilities in those apps. Yes.
Yeah. So it's a good engagement tool for sure. We talk a lot about kind of the Dancing with Startups program that we do, but looking at big companies like yours, innovation and growth, things that you should build, things that you should buy, and programs that you should actually borrow or partner with. So co-creation, innovation, and you've done a great job at, I think, taking these assets that you've acquired over the years and not just sitting on them, but leveraging them. So it'd be fun to talk about one of those, actually a few of those. The ones I like so far are brand new. So you've got Walmart shopping through your Yahoo email. So I can actually shop through my email. I use the Walmart app right now. Tell us about the email thing. I think it's fascinating. And you've got a great audience there.
So one of the things that we learned is, in the US, Verizon Media's mail users see 1 out of every 3 commercial emails, and so massive reach and footprint when it comes to that activity. And you could think of a lot of this in the past as, hey, this is your spam folder, your spam inbox, but really a lot of what's happening there is commercial opportunities. So we had created a deals tab and experience within mail that was more oriented towards organizing your deals and your commerce. And what we saw was really deep engagement there. Now, when you look at different categories of commerce, online groceries are really ripe for disruption, and there's a lot of activity there. So we identified a very unique opportunity to partner with Walmart and essentially power that through an environment that from an experience standpoint is already highly commercial and a place where consumers organize a lot of their lives or the business of life. So it was a pretty seamless opportunity, if you will. We launched it a couple months ago, and we're super excited by what we're seeing. And it's just the kind of tip of the iceberg, if you will, in terms of the opportunity, in terms of connecting content to commerce more seamlessly.
Can you tell us how it works? So do I just type in the things I want, bananas, lettuce, mayonnaise, or is there a checkbox list, or what? How does it work?
Yeah, so you have an ability. The simplest way to describe it is you have an ability to organize your shopping list and essentially initiate your grocery experience from mail. You will be operating in the Walmart environment, and what we ultimately want to be able to do is to power this very broadly. So think of it as when you're in the mail experience, you have different tabs, and you have an ability to transact in one of those in the massive scale that Walmart has for online groceries here in the US.
Yeah, I think it's a step in the right direction. I do a lot of talks on digital dysfunction, and it's like our phones just have too many apps on them. This thing is just, I forgot how many are on here, and we're still slaves to the technology versus the technology working for us. And one good step to that is, well, let's maybe try to use a tool that you're already using. Maybe we can make it to do other things.
Yeah, and make it more seamless.
Yeah, but unfortunately, there's competitive forces there, and Google probably doesn't want you to do that because you're somewhat competitive on email platforms. Anyway, how did you get into this other category, digital out of home, another acronym, DOOH, I call it DOE. So you've done some really interesting partnerships there, like cooler screens and stuff like that. What's that all about? Is that strategic?
Yeah, and so when you think about it, I mean, one of the elements of how the industry has evolved is this notion of omnichannel engagement, right? And with digital screens out of home, and again, the category of digital out of home has indoor screens like cooler screens, where the cooler doors in groceries are replaced with actual screens that enable very rich and unique experiences inside of grocery stores. They're in Walgreens as an example, all the way through to the Shark experience, which is screening golf carts, all the way through to your more traditional, there's a billboard out there. But when you think about it, we're engaging in life in a host of different ways. And, You can go from a connected TV device to your mobile device to something that you're exposed to in these digital screens. So it really allows for a very seamless and integrated type experience. So we've been very bullish in that space. And as you mentioned, we've done a lot in terms of new partnerships. And we're very excited because we think it can both deliver a very unique type, location-specific, situation-specific, highly relevant experiences, but also ones that in the back end, we can connect with similar data, right? So we can enable advertisers to connect with those audiences in very meaningful ways across the board. And we're doing that with TV as well. So think about it in very kind of cross-screen, cross-location, cross-situation type environments.
Yeah, I appreciate you trying not to use the word omnichannel too much, because it's just so overused. And a lot of that can be synced with your phone. So if you're close to these screens, they can actually personalize stuff for you. And are any of those touchable? Or are they mostly display? Or the cooler screens ones?
So some of the screen experiences are connected with other applications that you can interact with. The cooler screen ones right now are mostly display.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense. Given what's happened in 2020, most retailers that like Revive is working with, they're just going to phones now. Even though they've invested in mirrors and screens and all types of stuff, people don't want to touch them. And I don't think that hygiene thing's going away. I think people are going to pretty much just like, I can just get it on my phone. But the visualness of having something huge in front of you, I don't think that's going away. You just might not want to touch it. That's So the golf cart one's interesting though. Is that like serving me up ads or getting me a cocktail or telling me how bad my stroke was? What are you doing there?
Well, I would need to watch more of your game and
Believe
overall
me,
behavior in the court to be able to answer that question.
It's pretty bad. I would be in the cart watching TV is what I would be doing.
There you have it. Yeah. So again, the experience is deliver both content and advertising, and to your point, it depends a bit on the audience.
I might need a therapist. That'd be a good ad after a good golf game. That's a good segue into advertising. What's going on in 2020 with ad volume and directionally where people are putting ads? Both the big. Let's start with the big guys, the big budget companies, and then maybe move into some of the opportunistic indie companies that are actually making moves. But what are you seeing overall across your networks?
Yeah, so I think that you can think of it as three categories. If you think about it from the advertiser side, you have, let's start with the bad/ugly. You have businesses that are essentially not doing any business, right? Then there's the second bucket, which is certain businesses that are trying to figure out the best approach during the pandemic, right? They may need to change their messaging and so on. They are still in business, but they are trying to figure out how to best play it. And then you have certain businesses that are just thriving, right? So we talked about, all of the streaming services, a bunch of areas related to wellness, financial services, and so on. So it's almost like a tale of three cities, if you will. The common thread among all of them, I would say, is that you need more flexibility and simplicity than ever, right? Because a lot of the speed in which you need to make some of the decisions, put them into practice, and then connect in the right places is required. So what I would say is for us, and look, those buckets are the ones that you would expect, right? So I mentioned some examples of categories and so on.
A lot of the retailers are in the first bucket, of course.
Right. And then, travel and so on would be in the bottom bucket, a bunch of, restaurants and whatnot, although that has been fluctuating. And interestingly, even in those categories, there are some subcategories that, like cruise lines, cruises get booked way in advance and so on. So some of those, I would say, have come back fairly soon after the dip. But, so on the advertiser side, I would say that's what we're seeing. And then on the publisher side, we're seeing overall more diversification. So more publishers testing subscription models and commerce models. while at the same time, and one of the things for us, because we have both the buy side and the sell side, is providing an opportunity to connect unique demand and unique supply better, which enables you were kind of alluding to maybe some of the smaller players and so on. That's creating a space for smaller players as well, particularly ones that have honed in on key content categories that are a lot more relevant during these times.
Yeah, we've noticed that at least in the beauty, tech, health, wellness sector, where they're opportunistically buying sometimes what we used to call remnant ads. I don't know if we still call it those, but those last minute. I'm sure you're doing a lot of last minute remnant selling where people are being very opportunistic. But yeah, the small indie brands, as we call them, seem to be, many of them have done well in acquiring new customers in and around the big guys who didn't move that quickly or who just stopped advertising. Yeah. And, so like you said, the buy and sell thing. All right, so we've covered consumers, we've covered commerce. What's going on with content? You guys have made some big content investments. Is the game over with content? Is it just like the big guys and all these little indie companies that are trying to like do the next thing and come up with the next, services like what did I use the other day? Quibi, things like that. Maybe they're not indie anymore, but they do little small, tiny episodes. Perfect for people who have ADD and not a lot of time. Are we going to see more of those, by the way?
And look, I think I believe that we'll definitely see a lot more innovation, and we, as a global company, we learn a lot from other geographies. We've been watching a lot of what has happened in China and whatnot, and really I think that there's, if nothing else, just a sheer increase in consumption. So it's almost like, you have the glass, you put big rocks, then smaller pebbles, and then sand and so on. So I feel like different kinds of content will just create new and different opportunities for media consumption.
Yeah, and what do you say to those companies out there? Let's just call them startups, entrepreneurs, whatever, that are, kind of working on the next thing. You and I know everybody from script writers to just people working at independent studios, things like that, trying to break through.
Yeah, I mean, look, again, I think that in all of this transformation, one of the areas that is impactful is that with the innovation, you have both. Innovation can help create greater barriers because some participants have a lot more scale, but it also lowers some of the barriers because it's now more effective and efficient to create and distribute some of these content. So I would say, if nothing else, once again, I believe that it's more of a space for innovation. And when you think about it, there's a bunch of areas that we were not dreaming of a year ago that are now mainstream, right? So and have gained significant scale. So to me, it's more like, continue innovating.
And how do you find like the next thing to work on? How do you look at growth and innovation and co-creation? That whole thing that we touched on.
Yeah. So a lot of it is we work with a very large ecosystem of partners. I'm, for example, involved with an alliance here in Southern California for innovation, regional innovation, and so on. So think of it as a multi-pronged approach, and we really believe in the power of networks, right? So we have our own areas of innovation where we have thesis around what we learn from consumers and businesses every day. And then, a lot of this comes from innovating with partners. I mean, you talked about cooler screens and the Shark experience. Those are great examples of that.
Yeah, you guys are good at it. What we always love to hear stories of the biggest challenges in your life, things you've struggled with. Good stories that can help people. Any thoughts there?
Yeah, look, so one, I mean, this whole first quarter, second quarter of this year has been just tremendous, right? In terms of when you think about it, in my professional life, I've never seen so much change happening at the same time, and that affects not only the business side, but also the personal side and how we interact with our families and loved ones and so on. So I would say, I'll be honest, I've struggled personally with that. And how do you balance? How do you evolve? How do you manage your teams? How do you manage your customers? How do you help your customers? So professionally and personally, I would say that that's one that is very present, because it's literally happening right now. I would say a prior one in my career was, and you and I interacted when I was doing this. I was at a startup, and we were competing with very large players. And it's really hard to manage the cash flow on one hand, and on the other hand, be able to really attract talent and maintain everyone motivated when you know that you may be running out of cash the following day. And I think what I learned there is the power of something that is mission driven, and how that engages your partners, your team members, and so on, and how that helps you deal with a lot of that. But when you're in the middle of it, you don't. At least I didn't see it. So it's almost like that experience encouraged me to take larger risks afterwards.
Yeah, it's good advice. Ivan, I really want to thank you for joining us on the program. It's been great, and look forward to having you back sometime. You've been listening to Ivan Markman from Verizon, and good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you.
Yeah, take care.
You too.